We are the champions. Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide hoisting the Crystal Coaches Trophy as the Tide dominated the LSU Tigers on Monday night, winning 21-0 en route to the program's 14th national championship, the 9th in the poll era since 1936, eclipsing Notre Dame, which had been tied with Alabama at 8 poll championships. We'll break it all down right now on a championship edition of Tider Insider Television.
Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Gary Harris.
Touchdown in Tuscaloosa this afternoon. The Crimson Tide returned home to hundreds of excited fans despite the rain. That didn't keep away the Bama Nation. Everybody wanting to cheer on the team that brought home the program's second national championship in 3 years. And look at this. Too much Bama, says Sports Illustrated. The Tide on the SI cover once again. The edition will hit newsstands on Thursday. This marks the 20th time that the Tide has been featured on the cover and the 9th since 2009. Good evening, everybody, and welcome into Tider Insider TV, presented by Buffalo Rock, alongside TiderInsider.com founder Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. Buffalo Rock presenting us with some Diet Pepsi tonight that we can drink and enjoy. And Rodney, good to have you here. Back to New Orleans, both of us. And also your honeymoon.
Yep. What a present.
Yeah, what a way to finish it, huh?
Present. Yeah. Thanks, Nick Saban.
Yeah, and let's all get started with the defense. You talk about defensive domination. It's the first time ever in a BCS championship game that there has been a shutout since the BCS took over the championship, and Alabama's defense was dominant. When you look at the stats, 92 total yards for LSU. They crossed midfield one time. They averaged 2.1 yards per play, 92 yards on 44 plays. Jordan Jefferson just at the end of the game like he didn't want any more.
Well, I mean, he didn't look like he wanted any to begin with, Gary. I mean, from the very opening, you remember they had the bad snap offensively, LSU did in their first possession, and really things went downhill from there with them. But, you know, Gary, you look at this game, it's essentially the same game we saw in November. The only difference was a few things. Number one is Alabama made a few more field goals. They didn't give up the throw down the field, if you remember that throw down the field to Russell Shepard that set up that first field goal, nor did A.J. turn the ball over, throw the interception to Morris Claiborne as he did in that first game that set up their second field goal. So you take away those few things, and it's basically the same game we saw in November, but Alabama this time took advantage of opportunities.
You make a great point, and it's a point that kind of got lost because we're obviously hung up on who wins the game. LSU won in Tuscaloosa November 5th. As I've said before, give them credit for that. But you're absolutely right. Alabama's defense was dominant in that game, too. LSU sustained nothing, maybe a few plays on the option after Jordan Jefferson came in. But this defense has been dominant all season long, not just in this game last night. That's the way they've played all year. As we've said before, 8 points per game going into the game. It's now 8.2 for the season. But a number of those touchdowns, 2 of them came on kickoff returns. One of them was a defensive touchdown by Auburn. 2 more were set up by a Phillip Sims interception against Kent State, first and goal at the 3-yard line. Then a Mississippi State punt return gave them a short field. This defense could have easily given up 4 or 5 points a game.
Well, and you know, Gary, we talked about this before the game. I said one of the big advantages I felt heading in was the fact that Alabama would have the opportunity to prepare for Jordan Jefferson from the onset. You remember the first game in November, it was Jarrett Lee who had been the quarterback, so Alabama had to give a lot of preparation for him. And then you had that kind of change of pace, if you remember, when Jordan Jefferson came in the game in that first time. But this time, Alabama was completely ready and prepared for what Jordan Jefferson does. And I thought that was a big advantage, and I thought we saw that in this game.
Absolutely. Well, the Alabama defense will certainly go down as one of the best in Crimson Tide history. And while Nick Saban doesn't like to make comparisons, we know that, he did offer these thoughts on this year's Alabama D.
I mean, you're talking about one of the most competitive groups of guys as a group. I mean, sometimes I get mad at them in practice, all right, because they get a little bit hurt and they don't run to the ball like I want them to or like we want them to or whatever. But I always know, all right, when you throw the ball out, they're going to go get it because they are a hateful bunch and they are competitive as you can ever imagine.
I'm proud of our defense. I mean, we know we had a great defense, and if everybody just did their job, held themselves accountable, nobody would be able to move the ball on us.
We all out there having fun. You know, Coach Saban tell us all, you know what I'm saying, that even the guys on the sideline, even if you're not a player, just to, you know, make sure you're in the game. And, you know, when one player make a play, you know, all 10 of the rest of the guys, you know, trying to go celebrate with that guy, you know what I'm saying. It's just us going out and having fun with each other.
Now that the season is over, is this the best defense that you've ever coached?
Well, I don't like to make comparisons. You know, these guys are, you know, a fine group. This has been a great team to coach. It really has. I mean, somewhere along the line, after the bowl game last year, they made a commitment. There was a lot of good leadership on this team. I actually thought in some ways we had more talent on our team last year than this year. But the character, the attitude, the resiliency of this group, the work and the commitment and the buy-in was what made this team different.
Well, offensively, what can you say, too? I mean, the defense did what it has been doing all year long, but the difference in this game was the offense stepped up, particularly quarterback A.J. McCarron, 23 of 34 for 234 yards, no turnovers. He was the offensive MVP. The Tide coaching staff on offense with Jim McElwain in his final game put the game in the hands of the Crimson Tide quarterback, and he rewarded them by stepping up his play and really getting it done.
It was about what we needed to do to win the game. And, you know, I believe in trusting and believing in the players. And I've always trusted A.J., and I believe in him. And I don't mind putting the ball in his hands so he has an opportunity to make those plays as long as he makes good choices and decisions about what he does with it. And he's done a good job of that all year.
We've been leaning on number 3 all year. I mean, he's our workhorse. I mean, he's our main guy. And we knew coming into the game somebody else had to step up. And Coach just gave me an opportunity. Like I said, when you got a group of receivers like I have, it makes your job easy as a quarterback.
Well, A.J. sounding like a veteran, offering all of the praise to his teammates, and they deserve it. But it started with him. I mean, you could see this coming all year. He had some games where he played very, very well. He had some others where he seemed to regress, but he was ready for this moment, and I think it's clear now he's a big-time quarterback.
Yeah, but let me say this, too, and I agree with everything you're saying, but Kevin Norwood came up big. Let me tell you, he made a tremendous catch there to get A.J. off on a good start when he went over the Honey Badger. And I told you late in the week, told some other people, watch for Alabama to go after number 7 defensively. That's the guy they targeted because in coverage he can be beat. And Kevin Norwood abused him a couple of times. Made a great fingertip grab as well.
Norwood's a guy that we've been talking about for a couple of
3 years.
Why doesn't he get more playing time?
3
When
years.
he's in there, he catches the ball. He's got great hands, but he really stepped up last night. All the receivers did. Mays went down on that punt return, did not return. Of course, that punt return was a tone setter too. But the way McCarron ran that team, not just in terms of his play, but he really, I think, took over that team going forward for the future. You could see him barking out orders. You could see him offering praise and encouragement to his teammates. I mean, he ran the show last night, Rodney.
Well, he did, and it was good to see, Gary, because we've talked about the future of this team and how the offense may go in terms of next season. And, you know, again, Eddie Lacy's an outstanding back. I think he has a chance to be opportunity to be a great back next year. We'll see. But, you know, Alabama may not have a Mark Ingram or Trent Richardson that they can rely on as much as they have, you know, in the past. But, you know, it may become more of a quarterback offense with A.J. McCarron.
Well, still to come on Titv, has Nick Saban earned himself a spot among the all-time coaching greats? Rodney and I will discuss. But up next, no split title for the Tide, although one person in the AP voted LSU number 1, if you can imagine that. But the Bama team has all of the national championships that have been given out, and should there even have been a debate in regards to since somebody else has split the title with Bama winning. We'll talk about that. We'll take your phone calls. We know plenty of you want to talk to us. 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Or you can email us as well. TITV@WVUATV.com. Stay tuned. More Tider Insider presented by Buffalo Rock is on the way. We're back on Tider Insider Television, and today Nick Saban was presented with all that championship hardware. The BCS Coaches Trophy presented by Dr. Pepper. And yes, the AP National Championship Trophy and the MacArthur Bowl Trophy as well. Now, there had been some talk that maybe the Associated Press would award LSU or Oklahoma State the championship if Alabama won. However, after the Tide dominated the Tigers, LSU only got one first-place vote, although Oklahoma State did pick up 4. And again, today I'm watching all the national shows as best I could after getting in from New Orleans and listening to the radio. And you know, a lot of people are talking about what the game they would have liked to have seen, rather than the fact that we had the 2 best teams, clearly. No disrespect to Oklahoma State. They had a fine year. They weren't in LSU and Alabama's league, in my opinion.
No,
and to make that argument
not.
is just wishful thinking.
Yeah, they would have came out, Gary, and, you know, maybe thrown the ball a little bit more, might have had added a little bit of excitement offensively here and there, but it wouldn't have been long before either one of these 2 teams would have physically started taking them over, dominating.
Yeah, here's the thing. I think Oklahoma State would have scored some points against Alabama, but Alabama would have scored a whole lot more points against Oklahoma State than they did
Let me
against
tell you,
LSU.
by the time the third quarter, middle of the third quarter rolled around, Alabama or LSU for that matter, physically started just, you know, that pounding starts taking a toll on that defense. You know, they wouldn't have been able to hold up.
And like I said, we can discuss it. At the end of the day, Alabama's got the hardware. As I mentioned, 14 overall national championships, 9 since the Poll era in 1936, eclipsing Notre Dame. And really right now, there's no doubt Alabama is the preeminent football program in the country. And it has a lot to do with Nick Saban. When he got here just 5 years ago, Alabama wasn't talking about winning any national championships, even conference championships for that matter. Now has he earned a spot among the elite coaches in the history of the game? Plus, what will the 2012 version of the Alabama football team look like? We know you're already looking ahead, so are we. We'll take your phone calls, get to your emails, and more. Stay with us. Alabama head coach Nick Saban made history last night by becoming the first coach to win 3 BCS championships. And Rodney, he's got a lot of coaching left, but even if he retired today, do you think he would go down as one of the all-time college football coaching greats? The numbers back it up based on national championships. He has joined the league company.
How many did Jimmy Johnson win? Do you remember? Was it 2?
I think it was 2.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
there aren't many that have won 3.
No,
period.
there's not many that have won 3.
Coach Bryant leads the way at 6, but
yeah.
Woody Hayes has got 3. Some other great names. Saban is now in, as I said, in very elite company in terms of national championships.
Well, you know, Spurrier won 1
at
Florida, and you know he's considered one of the greats because of, I guess, the way he changed college football in a way, especially in the SEC. But absolutely, Nick Saban with 3 national championships, and as we talked about, you know, Gary, you mentioned it, he's got more left in him. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And you know, if he coaches 6 more years, it's not inconceivable that he could win a couple of more.
Well, for 4 years in a row now. And remember, his first year they were 6-2 before the Bookgate thing. Finished 7-6, avoided a losing season. But in his second year, they go 12-0 before losing that. You know, they got T-bowed over in Atlanta. Then they win it in 2009. They're preseason #1 in the hunt until November of last year, and then they win it this year. And going forward, as you said, you got to believe Alabama's going to be a consistent national championship contender, and that starts with 2012. Let's go ahead and look ahead. Now, we don't know exactly what this team is going to look like, Rodney, because it's going to depend a lot on the juniors and the draft-eligible players, what they do in regards to either going pro or coming back. But just a quick preview of 2012.
Well, you know, when you look at this team, certainly you think offense in terms of the guys coming back. You have that offensive line. The only one they're losing will be William Vallejos. Possibly you could see Barrett Jones moving into that spot. Cyrus Kwanjo, a lot of ability there at the left tackle spot once he recovers from that knee injury. You look at the quarterback spot, we saw A.J. McCarron, just a glimpse of the future, some wide receivers. Eddie Lacy at tailback and possibly a freshman, T.J. Yeldon, who's coming in. So, again, they should be really good on offense. And, you know, you switch to that defensive side, though, Gary, and they're going to lose some guys. They're going to lose some leadership. You've got, obviously, Dante Hightower you're losing, as well as Courtney Upshaw, who is a beast coming off the end. As you know, you look at the secondary, that's going to be hit. You know, you're talking about Drake Kirkpatrick's probably going to leave early. You're losing Daquan Minzy. You're losing Phelan Jones, who was a reserve, in the secondary. And you're losing Mark Barron. And I don't know what Robert Lester might do in terms of coming back or going, but you would hope that he would stay. But again, they're going to have some guys to work with. You've got some guys coming in the spring, Travell Dixon and Dion Ballou at the corner spot. So, you know, they should have some guys to certainly fill the role. And they're going to be pretty good. You got probably going to have Jesse Williams back and Damian Square. And got to fill that spot with Josh Chapman. Don't want to forget about him in the middle. But, you know, they're going to reload.
Also, a big part of that defense figures to be C.J. Mosley. Preliminary report looks pretty good. Dislocated hip. X-rays were not negative. He will have an MRI, but if it's what they think, he could be back in 6 weeks.
Well, he is key. And also Trey DePriest came in last night. He showed some cohesion. He really did. And Vinny Sinceri, he had a big play there in late in the fourth quarter when he hit Jefferson, kind of made the errant throw. So again, just a lot of young guys.
Defensively, it'll be fun to watch some of these new guys work in. Offensively, Alabama, particularly what you see with the offensive line and with McCarron, what he did last night, they could be special next year. All right, time to take some phone calls. First up, our buddy James over in Rainbow City, Alabama. James, welcome into the program.
Hey, guys, how y'all doing? Roll Tide.
I hear you, James.
Roll Tide, James.
I tell you what, this team is incredible right here. Their defense is just awesome. And I have a question and a comment. Our next offensive coordinator, I heard that it was possibly going to be the guy from Boise State.
Peace.
And I've watched them quite a bit, and they seem really good. And my comment is this: at the beginning of the season, everybody was all up in arms that, Alabama was falling apart. But it proves again that Nick Saban and his coaches and these players know what they're doing.
Well, absolutely, James. You make a great point. It all starts with Saban. This is a program built for the long haul. I mean, it is, it's not a program where you can have one great year, then you can come back and a couple years later you're 4-7. Just not going to happen. Too much talent in place, too many good recruiting classes in a row, too much stability in the coaching staff, and that's what it's all about. As far as the offensive coordinator piece, the guy from Boise, also wanted very much by Will Muschamp in Florida. In fact, Rodney,
I think that's where he's going, yeah. Gary. I didn't get an opportunity to check it on the way in, but I think that Brent Peace is going to Florida instead.
Let's remember this, James. Regardless of who comes in here, there's a template in place, offensively and defensively. Don't look for Alabama suddenly to just scrap everything they do like some programs and bring a spread guy in here, a guy who's going to have the Houston offense where 6 guys are running all over the place. This is going to be a pro-style attack. So the offensive coordinator, regardless of who it is, the system's going to be very similar to what it's been.
He's going to put together the offense that Nick Saban believes in, and it's much like what we've already seen.
That's right. All right, let's stay in Tuscaloosa and talk to Joseph. Joseph, welcome into TITV.
Yo, Gary, Rodney, Roll Tide.
All right, buddy.
Feels good to be champions again, but hey, piece this out. Now, could it be? I remember 2 years ago, Nick Saban said this is just the beginning. So could it be that Alabama could be the team of the decade?
Well, they won the last championship of the last decade. Auburn won it in 2010. Now Alabama's already got one for 2011, and you could define decade as the last 10 years, the decade in itself. But yeah, certainly they're in position to be as we talked about, one of the most prominent football teams in the country every year.
Well, you mentioned before, we went to break a while ago and we talked about Nick Saban being one of the greats ever. You talk about the last 4 years, what was Alabama? 48-6?
That's right.
An SEC championship, 2 national championships. That's an incredible run.
4 regular season SEC losses in 4 years.
Yeah,
it's been unbelievable. All right, let's go to Bessemer and talk to John. John, what's going on, man?
Gary, what's going on, man?
Hey, buddy, we're hanging in here.
Hey, man, that was a good game. That's what Alabama needed to do, shut them out. That's what I want to ask you. Can Alabama go undefeated again next year?
It's so hard to go undefeated. Let's remember this, as good as this team is, and no disrespect to 2009, I think this is Nick Saban's best team ever at any school, better than the LSU national champion. They couldn't go undefeated.
Well, first of all, yeah, exactly. That's my point. As good as this team was, they couldn't go undefeated. Again, we talked about them not being able to take advantage of opportunities against LSU the last time. And this game, very similar to the last game, but Alabama made the plays they had to make this time.
Yeah, and they had the chip on the shoulder. We saw Lou Holtz after the game. He said, always better to be the hunter rather than the hunted. We'll be back with more right after this. Welcome back, everybody, to this championship edition of TITV alongside Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. Let's take a few more phone calls. Paula has been patient waiting for us over in Alabaster. Pardon my voice, Paula. I'm tired, but what's going on?
Oh, I just thought I would call and say that I think that Coach Saban should be among the great coaches. I really do.
Yes, ma'am.
And I also firmly believe that these referees should go back to school and learn about what is pass interference, what's false starts, and if they're going to throw the flag for false starts, why don't they do it before the ball is snapped rather than after the ball is snapped? And if they don't know the difference between holding and and pass interference. I'll be glad to explain it to them, because when you're holding somebody and preventing them from getting the ball, and you're interfering with the pass.
All right, Paul. Yeah, you know, officiating is always going to be dissected. Now, I'll tell you this. I don't know if you were talking specifically about last night. I thought those officials last night did a good job. I mean, they let them play. And I think when you got two real physical football teams like that, they would rather be in a game officiated a little bit loosely than one where they're calling
Yeah,
everything.
for the most part, I think you're right. I think there was one time there when Matthew got away with a hold on Norwood, I believe it was. But other than that,
I thought Alabama might have got away with a couple too.
They certainly didn't take the game.
One thing about officiating, if you let them play, the best team's usually going to win the game. All right, up next, another championship, another Gatorade bath for Nick Saban. That story with Titv continues. Finally tonight, Nick Saban is all about improving, and that goes for everything, even a Gatorade shower. In 2009, at the conclusion of the national championship game, Alabama gave their coach the Gatorade bath. However, it didn't go very well. He got his shirt turned red. He nearly got knocked out as they hit him upside the head. Last night, though, much better. Maybe they'd even practiced on it. Smooth delivery, nice dance by the coach, and improvement in the performance all the way around.
Well, I enjoyed the Gatorade bath 2 years ago. I think we've talked about it before. I wasn't expecting it and got kind of almost knocked out. So the players improved in terms of their ability to deliver. I improved on my ability to accept, and everybody was happy, except Rinaldi, because he didn't want any of it, and he got some of it too. So, but I told him to send me his cleaning bill.
That's going to do it for tonight's show. We're going to dinner at Buddy's Rib and Steak in Northport. Don't forget about our radio show tomorrow night. Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Good night.